vendor alone is $5,000. It's going to be a big chunk. I think it's going to be higher than what we projected.
Never had my client pay that. That's crazy. That's what happened with small business. Capital project. Which is totally out.
Be able to
So moved.
All right, we have a motion to get out of recess. Properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. So we're going to continue the conversation about item 15123, which is the budget fiscal year 2024, that it was sent and prepared to for us to review by the Mayor, Brian De Peña. So continue with the conversation that we left last night. We have the different departments that are going to be in front of us tonight. The first one is going to be the Airport Enterprise Funds. The second one is going to be the City Clerk Office, the Elections, Bureau of Statistics, and Annual Listings. City Attorney, Community Development Office of Planning, Board on Commissions, Zoning Boards, Lawrence Fire Departments. Within that, we have the Fire Administration, the Fire Suppression, Fire Alarms, Fire Mechanical Division, and Fire Electrical Inspection. That's going to be it for tonight. So with no further ado, we're going to start with the Airport Enterprise Funds.
Good afternoon, councilors. Happy to be here to present our FY24 budget. Council, would you care for a bit of a preview, councilors, or do we just dive into questions?
No question. You just, by all means, go to your
Okay.
through your budget, and then we ask questions.
Sure. Thank you very much. So the budget we are presenting today, councilors, for the airport, as you know, the airport, it is an enterprise. It is for $630,463, no cents. The revenues do reflect will be covered all of our expenses. The projected revenues that we have and how we generate in the various categories will cover the expenses. Expenses are forecasted higher and revenues are forecasted lower to ensure that we cover our expenses as we have continued to do so as an enterprise.
Yes. Just for those that are looking at the budget book, they following us through Facebook or through YouTube, I would like to inform that the page that we're discussing right now is within page 164 to 168 on the budget book.
Thank you, Councilor, for that, and I hope our residents are following along. Councilor, so as we look at 463 is a total from the airport fund as forth as personal expenses or personnel expenses. We continue for charges for services being the total. The difference between last year's budget and this is a difference of $27,150. We continue to next page. We go from the mayor's recommendation. One second, I'm trying to follow along here. Charges for services, airport charges for, if we look at the airport fund, comes to $38,400 on line 4242. Airport parking charges, these are, again, our revenues forecasted at $9,500. Airport landing fees is forecasted at $12,000, in line with those of FY23. And airport land leases with cost of CPI, you'll see that difference from last year coming in at $582,563, no cents. That gives us an incoming projected revenues of $642,463. And we can continue on the following page. We see again the recommendations on looking at expenses and expenditures. We have personal services at $301,180. Purchase of services, $123,302. Supplies, $11,200. Intergovernmental, $65,911. Other charges and expenses at $46,370. And capital outlay, $82,500. Again, for a total of $630,463 on the airport expenditures for the year.
Councilors? I wanted to mention one thing, if no councilor have questions. The apron, the apron that is located in North Andover, is owned by the city of Lawrence, and the apron runs with 4 people: the apron manager, the principal clerk, the apron maintenance working foreman, and the apron maintenance. We see a deduction of that budget recommendation for the apron manager of negative $5,150. So not everybody's getting a rate on these. I just mentioned a lot of people. So, and the apron is run with 4 people. That is a whole enterprise. So I wanted to ask you about how the main source of revenue coming to the
Yeah, so there are 4 sources of revenue, as I read on the projected. The main source of revenue, councilors, is from land leases. So we have about 36 tenants throughout the airfield who rent land from the airport and then build a hangar or something aviation related. In some cases, we do have a couple parcels that are deemed non-aviation, have been declassified from the FAA. They too pay. There's a tire shop. There is also a mechanic that does heavy equipment mechanic on the outside part of the perimeter of the airport, and they also pay a fee set by the Board of Commissioners. And that is how we generate revenues. That's one way of generation of revenues. Landing fees. So when a plane lands, there is a certain fee depending on tonnage and the wingspan of that said airplane. There's also parking fees. So if somebody owns a plane, they want to leave it there, say for the month, is $75 for that month. Or if they're doing short-term staying, there's also those. And then the 4th way of revenue is through fuel taxes.
What is it? If somebody wanted to park their short terms, how much is that if monthly 75?
So it's just prorated, 75 divided by 30 or 31, depends on what we're doing for the day. So the Airport Commission keeps it fair, and it is in line with other general aviation airports.
Sure. Councilor Rosario?
Thank you to you, Mr. Chair. Sources of revenue, is anybody thinking or looking into how many bodegas do we have in the area in Lawrence? And they all travel to New York to get products. Is any way anybody looking into how can they bring this right to the airport? The airport will make money, and it also will make it easier from the business in Lawrence, bringing products directly from maybe the producers flying into our airport.
Yeah. I think that's a conversation that can be had. We have 3, 4 field-based operators who are the people who maintain the planes, fuel the planes, arrange for the planes. I think cargo is an option. Look, we have Amazon that's just the property right next door. I foresee they're going to have those same conversations. There's going to be some infrastructure changes that need to happen, such as TSA and other federal agencies that would get involved. It's not as easy as just procuring a plane and landing it when you're talking about cargo. But those logistics are handled through those field-based operators. And I think if those bodegas and any other entrepreneur that wants to have a cost-saving analysis, we should have that conversation, make the right introductions to see how we could make some savings for our residents.
Can you go over that?
Yes, so we, like every other department, has a principal accounts clerk. That is the person that essentially, if I didn't have a vacancy for 5 months now, would either be formulating this budget, assisting me in presenting this budget, making those payments to our services, collecting payments from vendors. What that position is, there's additional duties that have been assigned by the Airport Commission. Badging, security, reviewing the cameras, issuing badges beyond what we have here at the City of Lawrence. We also have our own badges at the airport to have perimeter access. All of our vendors, our 200 airplanes that are stationed there, those 200 pilots, plus some spouses, plus some mechanics, plus anybody that works at those mechanic shops, those are badges. And so that level of service, and to your point, you said we have 4 employees. That principal accounts clerk was handling those additional duties, which have been absorbed by myself and my team. And so that amount that you see has been approved by the Board of Commission of the airport to supplement the pay of the principal accounts clerk to essentially make up, compensate, because it is not within her union duties. It is additional duties that need to be compensated. And the board deemed, again, an incentive to keep an employee. And I think that's how the last employee was able to be retained there for her 22 years until her transition most recently to the private sector.
All right. A couple of months ago, I believe, I saw a request for proposal for land on the airport. That's going on recently, or that's something that you guys started up, like new, once you took over?
Sure.
Or
So
how
yes, it is something that I presented to the board. So the way we handle both requests for proposals on the airfield, if somebody wants to develop airfield, say hangar space, which we're limited on, they make a motion to the board, make a presentation to the board, and the board kind of gives a vote of support or confidence. They go out and they find their contractors, their engineers, they do the site work, they talk to North Andover, they talk to the Conservation Commission. As you know, our airport is surrounded by wetlands, and then they come back and present the actual plan to the board to proceed. That is where we are, in that middle ground where the board has issued a vote of confidence to proceed. Now, hangar space is in dire demand. It benefits us as an airport, and also the sustainability of the airport to have more hangar space. Anybody who owns a plane wants to keep it inside. The technology in planes, just the materials that they're made out of, the wear and tear of the elements and the conditions, you want to keep a plane inside as much as you can. So we are actually putting up some of the tie-down spaces that would otherwise rent for $75 a day, excuse me, $75 a month. We're essentially putting that up for a proposal to build the hangar space. We're maximizing, there are some investors, folks related to the airfield industry, so it's not like a foreign investor that doesn't know regulations of FAA and the policies of the airport. So that's one proposal. Outside of non-aviation, there's also a ongoing request for proposals to build outside of the airport. There has been, I think we wanted to, we being the airport board, wanted to maximize opportunities for revenue. And so there is an ongoing process. Currently, we're waiting for the last disposition from FAA to guarantee that that land in front of the airport is deemed non-aviation, so that the board then takes a vote on the proposals that they have currently. Councilor.
I noticed that at least 4 or 5 years ago, there was different organizations that actually reach out to the airport and use the land for parking because they have events. Perhaps I know that there was an event called the Angel Ride.
Angel Flight, yes.
Angel Ride. So you collect funds to be able to finance perhaps like the ambulance to go to other hospitals.
Sure.
And essentially that's something that they use the airport, the ride, get out of there, and we come back there. So and everybody that ride on that event pay a fee. So that's something that you guys are looking for to perhaps rent that space for different events, different things going on in the area, and be able to generate.
I think we'd like to explore it, Councilor. I think one of the things that is promising in the FY24 budget of the state is design money for a new airport terminal or airport administrative office. That would maximize our space that we have currently now. We do have and you can see some of the costs that we're projecting, not just the cost of fuel or heating have skyrocketed, but we do have a very old building that is showing its age. Those windows are very porous. We often have to, in the winter, we did have to wrap them in plastic to prevent some of our heat from escaping, but still that doesn't make up for a lot of the other challenges that the building has. So it is in that sense of opportunity that I am hopeful, and I hope that the state delegation continues to support that design money that is in the recommended budget for the state, that will come to Lawrence as we are the next ones in line to design a building possibly in FY24 and begin construction in FY25 with 80% match from the state.
All right, councilors, any questions in regard to this? I hear no, so thank you so much. Thank you for
councilors. Appreciate it.
The next item, the next department that we're gonna hear is the city clerk. If you're looking at the book, it's on page 51. Good evening, clerk.
Good evening, councilors. I'm just going to give you a quick handout, if that's okay. Good evening, councilors. I'm City Clerk Eileen Burnell. I'm reporting on our FY24 budget. As you will see, the budget is pretty much level funded for everything that we have. The one big item is that in FY24, there's an extra election. Each year we have 2 elections in the fall. Every other year it's municipal elections or state elections. And then on the presidential year, we have a presidential primary in March. So that's a 3rd election, which is unusual. It happens once every 4th year. So if you look back on the look back, it's not reflected in the book because the book only goes back 3 years. But we did have that conversation with the CAFO, who acknowledged the need for those increases, and they are outlined in the memo, and then they are reflected in the budget book. But aside from those increases, our budget is pretty much level funded. There are some small increases for contractual union contract raises that are required, but everything else is pretty much self-explanatory, level funded, and if there's any questions, we're happy to try to answer them.
Councilors, there is any question in regard to the city clerk budget?
Good question.
Councilor De Rosario.
Thank you, through you. Thank you, Clerk, for being here.
Of course.
Clerk, this administration pounded on salary increases for employees. And to be honest, while I was looking through your budget, and now that you give me this, all these elections, you have a city clerk assistant, is it? City clerk? Huh? Huh? The assistant clerk on the election department, and to me, this salary is pretty low, and I don't see no proposal to bring the salary up. It's amazing that a greeter is almost making double or what this assistant is making. And now that you give me this paper to all these elections, the responsibility they hold this assistant, it's extremely big for this salary. And again, I don't see no proposal. I don't know if the calling center was in it. I don't know if he's a union employee.
If I could address that, Counselor, this is a union position, so it's not in the Collins report, but we do have a proposal with the union that they're considering. We increase that salary substantially. That's the proposal. It hasn't been settled yet.
Thank you. You hear me? I was going that way. That I said I don't know if it's a union employee, but that was the next question. But now that you answered it, that is fine. But we need to. I mean, now that you negotiated, so we need to see that and reconsider those. Thank you.
Counselor, I feel very fortunate. I have two assistant clerks. Jennifer Duran works with us at the council level, and Richard works in the elections office, and they are both excellent, and I couldn't be more grateful for both of them, and I would pay them as much as I possibly can, but they are in a union, they're in the same union, they get level funded together, and they're both fantastic, and they're both super hard workers. I can't say enough about either one of them.
No, thank you. That was my confusion, and then I should have
No.
done a little research, but it's understandable. But now the negotiation is on, so hopefully we can take care of them. Thank you.
Thank
Clerk.
you.
So just that we have that conversation, it is important to maybe recognize what we're talking about. The principal account clerk, that's the assistant clerk?
No, the assistant clerk is labeled as the assistant clerk, so if you look on page 53, you'll see the city clerk, one, assistant clerk, one, and then the principal accounts clerk is slightly above the senior clerks, but we have one principal account clerk and then two senior clerks, and my understanding is that they may all become principal clerks depending on what the union decides to do. But, so I have, in the upstairs office, we have 4 staff, plus myself, and then downstairs office, we have 4 staff.
So the assistant clerk
Yep.
are on the budget as a senior clerk, right?
No, the assistant clerk is in the budget as an assistant clerk. So there's 2 assistant clerks, there's one
Oh, on top, yeah.
in the clerk's office and
Gotcha.
one in the elections office. Then a principal account clerk in the clerk's office and 2 senior clerks in the clerk's office.
So the recommended budget for this year for that position is 57,000.
Currently, but hopefully with the union negotiation, that will go up.
By the way, that person run all the elections,
He does a great job, yeah,
mail,
yeah.
do mailing for the entire city.
Yeah. And he's gonna, on the, next year, there will be a 3rd election, so
Can you go through the of those,
go through the what of it?
the duties,
Of which role?
the assistant city clerk?
Sure, so there's 2 assistant city clerks. They both assist with management of their respective offices. So upstairs, Jen Duran helps me with the management of the office. Downstairs, Richard helps me with the management of that office because you cannot be in 2 places at once. Upstairs, Jen Duran works with me on the FOIAs, which is the Freedom of Information Act request that we get. She also works with, we report our vital statistics back to the state, so she works with me on that. She can and does help with the counter work. I try to have her not do that because she has so much other work to do. One of the biggest things is after someone gets married, processing that paperwork and getting it back to the state. Similarly with death certificates. You know, anyone in my staff can produce a birth certificate, a death certificate, or a marriage license, but the actual processing of those documents back to the state is really the principal clerk and the assistant clerk do those 2 functions. Then downstairs, Richard, again, manages the office. He's managing the elections, which is helping get the voter list ready, making sure that the mailings go out. There's required mailings by state law, as well as the census follow-ups. Like right now, we just did our census. People did not respond to the census. They're getting a notification that they will become an inactive voter. That means they will have to show an ID because they didn't respond to the census. So you'll get the complaints, they made me show ID. If they respond to the census, we don't have to do that. That's the way the law works. But Richard will work with me on that piece, making sure the mailing gets out on time. He works directly with our distributor, it's a vending company that does the mailing with us. They actually send the mailing out for us based on the list that we provide them. And Richard helps purge the lists. Works with his staff, obviously, they do a lot of the data entry, but then Richard checks it and gets it out the door, does an awesome job, gets it out timely. He's here if you have questions for him directly. And then we have the elections themselves. You know, we have the early voting, we get those organized and ready, the postings for those, managing the staff for those.
Thank you so much. It's so
I'm
many
sorry, yeah, he
bodies.
has a lot to do, we all do.
So
But
many-
they
so
have
many
great
things to do.
staff, and they do a lot of work.
Well, questions in regard to the city clerk?
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
I have a question. So the bilingual coordinator is now the principal account clerk?
We had a clerk that was given the role of the bilingual coordinator. We don't have that role, and it was a mistake. The person who was bilingual coordinator actually is just a senior clerk. We do have a principal account clerk that, one role was mislabeled, as you noted. Everyone in that office is bilingual. There's no bilingual coordinator. Nor does there need to be one where the entire staff is bilingual. But one staff still had that title, which wasn't appropriate because it wasn't, his job duties weren't lining up with that. So to make it more accurate, he is a senior clerk. That's what his role has always been, and he's still a senior clerk. I do also have a principal clerk. That was always been a principal clerk. And again, I think just more of a mislabeling of roles.
So, but I see it in here that the bilingual coordinator is being eliminated.
Is what?
Eliminated.
Yeah, so the three people are the same three people doing the same exact work they've
Yes.
always been doing. Just the title was inaccurate, so we reflected
okay.
it more. The current titles reflect their actual work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sorry.
Councilor Infante.
Thank you. Hi, Clerk.
Hi.
The memorandum that you gave us, so this is not included.
No, it is.
See,
That's what
it
shows the
is.
upgrade. So if you look like at
Okay.
the election, page 55, so you'll see, no, that's not a good page, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back. If you look at the elections, page 54, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I just realized the date on this, so yes, yeah.
It's
sorry.
all in there,
That's- yeah,
but it
thank
just to
you.
show you why there's certain lines have bump ups in them and
Yeah,
exactly what
yeah,
the bump ups are.
yeah.
They line up with that memo.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Before, the city clerk office used to close up at noontime. Is that still persist?
The only time it closed at noontime was when we had a staffing shortage due to COVID. We literally had one woman working alone, and she was pregnant, so they did close for 30 minutes so she could have some lunch. That was before I got here. We have a full staff right now. We are not closing for lunchtime or anything else. Since I've been in office and been in that office, we have closed once for a staff meeting for about an hour, but that office is always open.
I just want to make sure. Councilor Rosario.
Thank you. Clerk, this is a question that just popped up.
Yeah.
Do you think that we should make the city council run 4 years just as the mayor to save the city money on election?
I don't think that. I mean, I think historically you've been about, elections aren't about saving money. Elections are about people having a voice to be spoken. If you want to make that proposal, that's for you to decide amongst yourselves. But you shouldn't have more or less elections based on saving money. Elections should be about what's an appropriate amount of time and having your voice heard.
But when we were talking about early voting, you were talking about saving the city money by
Sure.
denying some days or eliminating some days of early voting.
And I do think having a little bit less early voting, in fact, my staff and I have been talking about that, especially in the primary, to have a few days less of early voting is very taxing on the staff. And to get them that early in the election season, to be working that many hours of overtime, when you get your early voting for the general election, it's like a marathon and you see that finish line. But when you're sprinting like it's a marathon and it's still September, it's really hard on the staff to carry that momentum and not be exhausted. And then after a general election, you can take a break. But after a primary election, you can't take a break. So I do think if we could cut back, I am going to actually submit a proposal to cut back on the early voting in the primary, not to deny people an election, but to give the staff a break, because the amount of hours they're required to put in for early voting is enormous. And if I'd had that conversation with them, unfortunately, Richard, who is our clerk in charge of elections, who's amazing, had taken some FMLA time to do some personal stuff, so he wasn't here to have that conversation before we had that vote. But now that I've had that conversation with him and fleshed it out more thoroughly, we are going to actually ask you to reduce the early voting for the primary. But however you guys decide, we're going to live with that decision.
Thank you, Clerk.
Yeah.
Councilor Infante.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I don't mean to put Richard on the spot, but I would like to hear from Richard and about that office and the operations. I know you have a great advocate, but you're the one who does the day-to-day, so I want to hear.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Richard Reyes, and on the elections, my staff and I, we basically help out with the public, new voter registrations. We deal with the RMV, who sends us new voter registrations every day, about like from 60 to 80 of them. We're getting, the month of May, we had about 361 new registered voters. As of now, we have about 43,246 registered voters in the city of Lawrence. Also, we're working on the inactivation list. Every year, we have to inactivate people who didn't answer the census for the 2023 census. We have about 16,643 voters who became inactivated. Doesn't mean that they can't vote. They're just going to have to show an ID, but they are going to have confirmation cards going out to them like in a week or two.
Done? Just to follow up on that conversation, on that line of thought, if somebody doesn't send back the census and they become inactive, the way of them becoming active again before the election, what is the process?
There's different ways of becoming inactive. They could sign a nomination paper for a candidate. They will be active. If they send the census late, we'll still take it in. The confirmation cards, or if they come in themselves, you know, we'll be more than happy to update them. Any little thing that they sign during election time will update the status.
And if they also send an online registration, right?
Yes.
A new one.
Like a change of address, yes, or change of party.
Or just the same, just a matter of just changing
Right.
the status, right?
Yes.
And that could be done online.
No, actually online, the state usually oversees online. Right now, this year, the state is proposing for us to set up a portal for people who want to vote early voting. And the state, like in the beginning of August, they're going to set up a system. They're going to contact us so people in the city of Lawrence could actually request that early voting ballot online to us. Before, we used to go through the state portal. We're going to have our own portal now.
Understood. Councilor Infante.
Thank you. Richard, Clerk Burnell, under elections, under purchases of service, I see that we have lease payments and rental, lease payments for 2,000 and rental of equipment for 6,000. What are we leasing versus renting when it comes to the election
Around election
department?
time, we usually, we rent U-Haul trucks to deliver the election equipment. We also deal with LHS, our election equipment services, in case one of our machines breaks down. It hasn't happened for the last 3 years because we purchased new ones, so we have more than extra. Yes, thank good. So we're pretty good with the equipment right now as we speak. Every year the state requires us to get more stuff. Like we ordered this year new signs for the election polls, 12-feet banners saying, you know, you vote here for each polling location now, so it's going to be more easier for voters to find their polling location. So we're just trying to make it easier for the public. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
If there's any other questions for the clerk? I hear none, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next department will be City Attorney, page 48 to page 50. Good evening and welcome again.
Good evening, councilors. After that last discussion, I'm a little worried what question Councilor Del Rosario is going to ask me, so I'm just going to... As you could see, what we have in my budget is there's an increase in the amount of $83,000. That would reflect my contract price, but what it also reflects would be the adding of another confidential secretary. Now, this confidential secretary would not be added until the first assistant is added, to be more because of the increased workload. But the other thing that I want to bring to your attention, although my assistant in my office does a wonderful job, I always worry because she has 30 years working for the city. She can leave at any moment, and her knowledge of what happens in that office is worth more than mine. It's just, she's indispensable. So what I would like, as with any job, is for her to be able to tell someone else what she knows before she goes, because if she were to walk out the door tomorrow, I would tell you the office would be greatly at a loss. So that's what we're looking to do, is just to get ready for that, but no one would be hired as it exists now. We would wait to see if when the first assistant comes in. I'm going to anticipate a question. I looked as of yesterday, we do not have any viable candidates. I got excited because I saw her resume, and this just gives you an idea of what happens. Is her resume was a young woman, she was bilingual, she had excellent everything. She wasn't a lawyer. I don't know why she applied for the job. She was actually a medical assistant, and I don't know why she applied for the first assistant attorney, but after I looked at the first page, I got all excited, and I turned to the second page, and I kept looking for law schools or a law degree, and she didn't have any, so. But we're still looking. As of about a week ago, we've expanded the search. I know that Councilor Rodriguez is very big on that, and I understand that. And two new organizations we'll put the ads out to. So I'm hoping that this week will be a good week for me, but that's what we're looking for.
I have a question very quick. So, in one of those meetings that I always go sometime out of the city, I hear from other people how they strategically target positions that are important to the city, and some of those are that they go to public meetings, public events, and ask there if like give out flyers. Those are the positions that we're looking for. If you know anybody, please have them reach out to us so we can have a conversation about the position. And it worked out very well for them. So I don't know if we are looking outside of the box to be able to get somebody, because I know that it is sometimes difficult for an attorney to come and work for the city, but sometimes there is attorneys that are looking forward to work for city.
I agree with you. I can't say that I use the flyers, but I'm on the board for the Essex County Bar Association. Every Bar Association meeting, I announce that I'm looking for someone. Every time I go to a court, I actually ask the assistant district attorneys if anybody's looking to leave or anybody's interested in doing city work where they're used to working for an organization. The Lawrence Bar Association, when I go to a meeting. So I can't say I hand out flyers, but if there's someone that meets me that doesn't know that I'm looking for someone in the office, then I haven't done my job. But I agree with you. I probably could prepare some sort of a flyer that gives more explanation. Because I think that's what it is, that a lot of lawyers don't know exactly what you do for the city. And maybe if I explain that better. But any chance I get, I tout the advantages of working for the city of Lawrence and the great job that it is.
I noticed that, when we were hiring for the main city attorney, the city solicitor, we have other candidates. Perhaps there were a couple, like 4, 5, perhaps 4, I think, in
Sure,
total.
yes.
Have you reached out to at least 2 of them?
Well, one obviously we did, but that didn't work out that well. But some of the candidates that were flushed out in the beginning were a lot like the woman that applied that had the medical degree. These were people that had no experience whatsoever, did nothing, and they really would have been, it wouldn't have helped the city of Lawrence. So, yeah, as far as past candidates, no, because if we ruled them out, I mean, if you were a viable candidate, we were giving you an interview and we were meeting with you. So the ones that kind of didn't make the cut, we didn't do it. And no one has reached out. If you're a past candidate, whatever you looked at to apply for the job, that new position is there. So if you wanted it, you could apply again. But as of this moment, I haven't heard from anybody.
Anyway, another thing that I would like to ask, all opposed to outside representation.
A lot of funds.
Exactly. So that's roundly like perhaps anywhere between 800 to a million too, right?
Could be, yes.
So can you, that's a number that you think that we can reduce eventually, or that's something that you guys are
During
working
my,
on, or give us some?
it's actually one of the promises I made to the council as a whole, once I got the first assistant, is that one of the parameters to judge how I did is take a look at it when I get my first assistant, give me 6 months, and see how much I've dramatically dropped that amount for outside counsel, because that's the goal. It was the goal when Raquel Ruano hired me through the council. It was the goal for everyone, just because it's not that there's very little, but there is work that's specialized, that you need to have that special counsel. The rest of it is, we could do it if we had the manpower. Just this afternoon, I think I reviewed 52 contracts for the city. If I had a court today, those 52 contracts wouldn't have been looked at. So it's not that they can't be done in-house, it's just we need the manpower.
Right, understand. Thank you so much. At least I'm glad that you're looking into it.
Aggressively. And as some people, I think even counselors have said to me, geez, I know someone that's interested. I said, well, have them call me. I mean, I'll talk to anybody, take a look at their references, and if they're good for the city, I'm more than happy to have them.
Councilors, any question about the city attorney? I hear none, so thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I hear no questions, so thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. You don't want me to ask any election questions or anything? Thank you very much, councilors.
The next department that we're gonna hear the budget is the community development. It is on page 57 to 59. Good evening, Fen.
Good evening, Councilors. Sue Fink, representing the Community Development Department. Our budget is, personal services is $285,664, and that covers 4 employees. The Community Development Director, a portion of their salary is covered by grants, and you will notice that that is shown as a grant fund reimbursement on page 59. In previous fiscal years, the Community Development Department Director was not shown on the general fund budget. A portion of her salary was shown under the non-HUD grant eligible activities, but that has been eliminated. We're showing her completely in here with the portion reimbursed from grants. We also have a grant manager, a community health specialist, and the homelessness initiatives coordinator on personal services. Under purchase of services, we have $9,500 for a share of the rent at 12 Methuen Street. It's approximately 17% of the rent cost. And $1,200 for a share of the custodial services, and that's approximately 18% of that cost. And then $373 for supplies for the break room, the restrooms. And that is shared among both the Community Development Department, Planning, and Business and Economic Development departments.
Councilors, any questions in regard to this budget? Councilor Infante.
Thank you. It's more of a comment. I'm looking at page 59, the list of positions, and I'm a bit bothered to see that specifically the community health specialist and the homelessness initiative coordinator, those are 2 major positions in our community that has been doing a lot of work. And I'm seeing, for example, and I really, really like this individual, but the grant managers is getting a raise of $24,000, and we just hired the grant manager. Huh? And then we have our community health specialist, which, I've worked with this individual both as a city councilor and my day job, so I know what they're doing. And also I know the increased need of trying to find a solution to our homelessness issues that we're having in the city. I don't understand. So if anyone can explain this to me, that would be great.
Some of our grants that we received to work on homelessness issues are no longer available to us. We're not receiving any of the emergency solutions grants, so that could have been a source of funds for both the community health specialist and the homelessness initiatives coordinator. And I'm assuming that the grant manager increase is part of the Collins Center increases that went across the board on the non-union employees.
Hi, good evening, Chairman and councilors. The reason why the grant manager is receiving that amount of money because there's work that she's doing for the police department as well as the fire department. That's the difference that has been where the salary adjustment is coming from. That's the reason.
Can you explain to us a little more as those two extra duties that she's doing?
Sorry?
Can you explain to us those two extra duties that she's doing?
Well, yes, because we need to get more grant funding for the police department in terms of a series of requests from the police department in terms of equipment, and also the fire department, we are anticipating additional funding that is needed, and that's basically the difference between her salary and what because that's why the salary increased for both. That was added to that. To get a grant person to write for the amount of $80,000 is not gonna happen. We can't get a grant person to write for those amounts.
Is that any other question? We good?
Thank you.
I think. Thank you. All right. The next item that we have is the Community Development Office of Planning. Page 60.
Good evening, Councilors. Daniel McCarthy.
That's Economic Development Office of Planning. That's Economic Development at this point, and the Office of Planning is going to be next. The Economic Development is on page 66 to 68 on the book. So then McCarthy, by all means.
So the Economic Development Department has a recommended budget this year from $267,000. That's a difference of $91,000 from last year's budget. That major increase is basically in salary. If we go to the salary and wages, you have personal services, salary and wages, purchase of services, which is only $200. Office supplies $2,000, and out-of-state travel expenses. So the recommendation this year is the Business and Economic Development Director position is going to be funded at $120,000. We have an Economic Development Project Officer, level 1, that's making $72,000, and we have a newly hired administrative assistant who makes $55,000. The Economic Development Department also pays 1/3 of the department's receptionist. That is a salary of $15,000. So that's essentially the economic development is almost entirely salary.
Any questions, councilors? I hear none, so thank you so much, Mr. McCarthy. Wait for a second. So, I have a question.
Thank you. Again, position, planning director and land use planner. Are you that one person for both?
I am still doing both jobs, yes.
Okay.
So actually, no, I am not planning director. I am director of planning and development. So
So which one is,
let me get to that page. The way the department's set up, there's a chief director who oversees the 3 departments. Then there's a director of, a planning director, a community development director, and economic development director. This was created back, yep. Excuse me?
So I wanted to write down that, how
The hierarchy works?
the chain of command of the department.
Sure.
So, and perhaps put names on the positions, so I know who is who.
Okay, so the top position is called the Director of Planning and Development, or we call it OPD Director. That's it. That's myself. It is the Director of Development, of Planning and Development, which is Community Development and Economic Development.
Can I just mention something? Hold on one second. Yeah, please be advised that we have in our plans to restructure the Department of Planning and Community Development. So that's why you see the OPD director and you have the planning director as well. Just to give you an idea is how it used to be when Teresa Park was here. In that position, that person that fulfilled the position, based on the amount of activities that are going on. For instance, like you mentioned, the current OPD director is doing multiple work, and that's not the way the office should operate. The OPD director should be working together with the mayor on any development that is presented to the mayor's office or to the city. The planning director should be reviewing each one of the different projects that are coming for review, not the OPD director. That's why you see the planning director, you have the economic development director, and the other ones, and you have the community development director that falls under the OPD director. I hope I made it clear. Yep.
thank you.
Okay, so we are currently in the process of restructuring the department.
Yes, it will come before the city council.
But right now, you actually made up this budget based on the new configuration?
Yes, to reserve it, so if the city council approves it, then the position is already funded.
What about if the city council don't approve
No,
that?
then we're not using the money.
And then you removing positions and putting new ones on the budget?
Yes, because we anticipate and project that's the mayor's recommendation to the city council for the approval of the budget.
I think that the restructure should happen before the budget, so we can have a specific position.
Well,
with the
we
specific-
have already started the process. It's with the city attorney, and we thought it was the appropriate thing to present it before you in order for the budget to be, for us to have it funded instead of not having it funded.
All right, explain to me what is that, I'm gonna write it down. So I was in the process of writing it down.
Right.
So I'm gonna write it down so I can understand. We have the OPD on top, which is McCarthy, and then who is on the bottom?
Then you have three positions under the OPD director. You have the community development, you have the business and economic development, and then the planning director position. That position, the planning director, is the one that we're requesting for the city that's coming before you. The planning director. So you have community development, I repeat it, you have the business and economic development, and then you have the planning director.
On the old
You have the director of OPD, right? And then you have the business and economic development, and you have community development. But the position of OPD director is doing basically two jobs or three. Yes, correct.
And the planning director is on top issue.
62.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to say, and I understand the Chair's sentiments, but I also know that someone, anyone, because this is how the council works, someone would mention, well, why didn't you guys, include this in the budget if this is the plan? So, I mean, I appreciate it that you guys are planning ahead. I know these questions will come up anyways, but I do understand, the sentiments, but I also understand that question would have came of why it wasn't included, so.
Councilors, any questions? Can you repeat the duties of the new position we're funding?
The planning director? The planning director would be the individual that is that's in charge of reviewing, of plan review, basically, and also attend the meetings for the planning and zoning board.
Which is now all being done by
Yes.
Democrat.
Currently, the director or the acting director is not doing the job of an OPD director in its full capacity, but he's doing basically the planning director job. So he's attending all these meetings. He's basically overwhelmed with all the work that he's doing. If you have the job of an OPD director is whenever there's new investors that are coming in, new developers that are coming in the city, his responsibility is to sit down, speak to them, talk to them, see what the future, the vision is for the city, and then have these discussions together with the mayor.
So for that department, we have a total different, or total change of 204,711, which include a new position of 125,481.
Yes, correct. Correct. Why they changed it from prior? That was the best structure to serve to serve the city and the community, and also businesses that are coming in terms of development. And I don't know why they changed it to another structure. It didn't make any sense.
All right, I have one more question. We see stipend $10,039. Can you go over the stipends?
The stipend was a portion that was part of the asset officer's salary for the work that they did beyond the regular. So Frank Cirillo, who's here tonight, is the city's asset officer. So the asset officer is responsible for management of the city's properties, acquisition, sale of properties, acquisition of properties, leases, those type of things. So that's why you'll see Frank at the Housing Department meetings, working with you on the sale of properties. He is also receiving a stipend through, Frank,
Yeah, sorry. The stipend that is provided in this budget is because we, as a matter of fact, it has been reduced, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, 10,000, is because of the work that, what's her name, Susan? Susan Degatti. That Susan Degatti is doing part-time in the office of the attorney's office, in taking time to review each one of the titles, examination, and other properties that are in default. So that's why we're paying that extra money.
That work at the city attorney's office?
City's attorney's office, yes.
So she's reviewing titles and stuff like that related to
Yes.
housing.
The asset manager goes through all the properties, once those that are delinquent or abandoned properties, they're not paying the taxes, and then from the attorney's office is where they review each one of them.
Thank you for the explanation. Councilors, any other questions in regard to this budget? I hear none, so thank you so much. The next budget will be the Office of Planning, and this is located on page 60.
which page, 60? Page 60?
I open for questions.
So-
Councilors, any questions in regard to this, the Office of Planning? We're gonna go over that, within the department, we have the boards and commissions, which is on page 63, and zoning board, which is on page 64 and 65. So can you go over that specific portion?
Sure. And the reason why we have the boards and commissions general page are the 3 boards and commissions that we oversee that are unpaid. They're all volunteer work, and their budget is relatively small. It's related to printing and mailing and advertising for the cases that we do every month. So those 3 boards are the Planning Board, the Lawrence Historic Commission, and the Prospect Hill Local Historic Commission. And that's the budget for them. The zoning board members themselves are statutorily, have a different requirement, and they receive pay. I believe it's $2,500 per individual. It's budgeted for a 7-member board. It's been a long time since we've had 7 members, but that's what it's budgeted for. You'll see a lot of, if you look back in the salaries, a lot of discrepancies. Many of the board members waive their salaries, so that when there's a conflict, they'll waive the salary. So we have a school department employee who does the work entirely voluntarily, so that will not be part of it. But it is, the mayor did request that the departments be fully funded in case the board changes oversight. The only other costs in there are for we have a personal development for, we allow the board members to take classes and things of that nature. It's usually a few $100s.
Councilor Infante?
Director, the 2,500 that the zoning board members receive, that's an annual, like, small
They
salary?
get paid, I think, quarterly.
Really? Okay, thank you.
And so
How many members? How many members?
Hmm?
How many members?
there's 5 full-time members and 2 associate members.
And 2 associate
Yep,
members?
that's a statutory.
For each
build.
commission?
Yep. So the associate members get paid half of what the full-time members get.
Thank you.
I believe it's 6, I believe planning is 5 and 1, and zoning is 5 and 2.
So if any changes on the zoning, property, that goes to the zoning board, and if it is any, new construction, that goes to plannings.
So the zoning board of appeals has three authorities. One is they oversee all decisions made by the building commissioner. They're the only body that can overturn a decision made by the building commissioner. That's why they're called the Board of Appeals. The second major project they do is they grant all variances from the requirements of this ordinance. So if somebody wants to do something that they don't have the insufficient dimensions or parking from the ordinance by right, they have to get a variance from the zoning board of appeals. They also do all commercial special permits. The planning board is responsible for all subdivision control. They create lots, they approve plans, and they do all special permits that are related to residential development. So if you're gonna do an addition on your house, or you're gonna do a 20-unit apartment house, you need a special permit from that board. That's the planning board. The zoning board does three things: commercial permits, variances, and appeals. The
And
planning board,
Planning board.
the planning board does subdivision law. It creates definitive subdivision plans and approves them, and it does all residential special permits. They also approve all signage, too. That's a new authority they got the last 20 years. So,
Councilors, any questions in regard to the boards and commissions? Any question about the zoning board? I hear none, so thank you so much.
excuse me?
I hear no questions, so thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next one, we have the Lawrence Fire Department. If you look at the book, it's on page 79. Good evening, Chief. Thank you and welcome again.
Good evening, councilors. How are you?
Very good.
Excellent. Well, the fire department was level staffed, and so our budget is the same except for the contractual increases. Now, that being said, you might see some numbers that look different than last year, but that's because we had senior people retire, junior people move in, so the things that get paid out, like longevity, seniority, education, that changes, but essentially it's all the same contract, or budget, not contract, sorry, wrong word. Hasn't changed from last year.
Councilor Infante.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Chief, I'm seeing here on page 81 that last year, the council eliminated the assistant fire chief position. And this year, I'm seeing it back here. Can you explain a little bit why we're seeing it again, and if there's an actual need for it?
I didn't put it in, but I'm not opposed to the position. The problem I had with it last time was how it was being forced and selected. I could use an assistant chief if it's done the right way. Proper requirements for the job, qualifications, interviews, do the right thing, find the right person for the job for what we're trying to accomplish. But other than that, I did not add it. The administration added it, but I'm not opposed to having an assistant chief. I think a city this size and this busy needs one. I just was opposed to the way it was done last time. It needs to be done the right way.
Thank you. I have a second question.
Councilor Infante.
Thank you. My second question is on page 83, the deputy fire chiefs. I'm seeing that there is a reduction in salaries, 900.
Again, I told, it mentioned previously, some people retired, so
Got
a
it.
senior deputy retired, now I have a junior
Got it.
deputy took
Okay.
his place.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
Councilor Rosario?
Thank you, through you. Chief, going back to the assistant fire chief, do you believe that the hiring is gonna be done the proper way this time?
Well, I've not been in any conversations with anybody about it, but I certainly will be pushing my opinion on how that should be done. I am not the appointing authority for the city, but I am free with my opinion when I'm asked.
I mean, but, well, you just said it that you haven't been in the conversation for it. But I'm assuming there's a protocol, normal procedures to follow to hire a person that it's qualified for this position.
I would tend to agree that there should be, correct?
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, going back to the same line of thought,
The same what?
the same questioning.
Oh, okay.
If you're not part of the conversation, how are we going to ensure that this is going to be the proper process?
I'm not saying a conversation has occurred. This is the first time that I've been approached about it. I imagine there will be a conversation, and if not, when it gets brought up, I'll speak up. But I have to be invited into the conversation to do it. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Councilors, any questions? So, Chief, I have a few things that I
Sure.
would like to bring. Obviously, in 2022, 2023, I asked the same question about the stipend. Still the same 30 hours, 2% increase of salary. If they do that, they get a 2%. If the stipend on the budget, that's related to education. as
Academic
per-
compensation?
Yes,
Yeah, if they, it's in the contract that if they attend
30 hours and then they get 2%.
that's correct. That's the same, it hasn't changed.
Those are my notes from 2022.
It hasn't
Same
changed,
thing.
sir. Still the same.
Okay.
The contract itself hasn't changed. We're in negotiations, so it's still the exact same contract.
Okay. So I noticed that a few years ago, we went to an arbitration with that,
We're not there yet. And in fact, we have negotiations scheduled for the 6th, is it, Mark? The 6th, coming up next week, and there is a brand-new e-board, and this will be their first negotiations with us, but nobody's mentioned the word arbitration yet.
No, I just want to make sure, like, you know, if that's the case on this budget, we would like to be aware of it.
Yeah, I don't blame you, but that hasn't come up, Mark. You're involved with the negotiations we've been negotiating with the last team. Sure, we're going back and forth, but we've got some pretty big issues solved, and now we're just doing some little stuff. But now we'll have a new e-board. We'll see what their view is on it, but we haven't even met with them until the 6th, which I think is Friday.
All right. How many of these members, I remember in previous budget discussions, that you have a couple of members of the fire department that were on the military and how
Okay.
many, do you still have that situation?
Right now, I have one that comes back this Tuesday. What, today's he comes back on the 6th, so maybe the 6th is Monday. He comes back on next Tuesday. He's been gone over a year. So yes, I had one military man gone for over a year. I do have one who's constantly going back and forth because he's in the service now, Captain Maglio from Ladder 4. He's currently in England doing some training, but not for a year long. I think he's there for 2 weeks, then he comes back. So we do have members in the service, a number that could do their weekends once a month, 2 weeks a year. But the only firefighter I have right now that has been deployed is firefighter Laura. He's due back next week. He's on his leave right now, and he's going to start with Captain Martin, the training captain, because he was only with us a month before he left, so he hasn't even really been trained. So he's gonna start with Captain Martin, do some basic training, go into fire alarm, do some training there, and he starts in the academy July 17th. I got a slot from an academy right away. I currently have 7 vacancies, and this time, because we tried to run the mini academy before, it was time consuming. I don't know that it really saved us anything other than got us to know the recruits a little better right away because they were with us rather than at the academy. So this time, when I got the names, I submitted their names right away to the academy for slots because they won't give you a slot for the academy until you actually have a name of somebody that you're going to hire. So that I've got them in the October class. It's all 7 of them. So they'll start in August because there's 6 weeks before the academy. They have a day 1 where they have to do training. And then they'll be with Captain Martin again. They'll do all the basic stuff. We'll get their gear. We'll get them measured up. We'll get them trained in fire alarm. We'll do their hazmat. We'll do their first aid. A lot of things we can do in those first 6 weeks before they go away to the academy. Then they'll all go at the same time, all 7, but we don't have 7. It's 7 openings anyway, so it's good. They'll get all in the academy, then they'll come back and fill slots. So we're trying that approach this time. So I am down 7. I did have 1 in the military. I do have 2 still on long-term ILD right now, injured line of duty.
All right, so back in 2022, I got my budget book in front of me. You have 119 people. And in this budget currently, you also have 119 people total.
I have
119.
Well, if you're taking the vacancies away?
That's including the vacancies?
No, I have 124 including the vacancies.
Okay.
Then I have civilian dispatches, 4 civilian. Then I have 3 electricians, I have a mechanic, I have 2 clerks, I have a support service
Because
manager.
this is, I'm looking at the page that is related to fire suppression
Can you
operation.
give me the number, page?
83.
83? Okay. Deputies, captains, lieutenants. I think it, we're, 80, 100. Yeah, I don't know why it comes out to that, what I'm missing, but I have 124 firefighters.
You only budgeted for 119, so
No, there's
probably
something,
have another department.
something
on
that
top of
I'm,
that. That's suppression, yeah.
oh, that's why. Thank you. Thank you. That's suppression. You had me, I was going down that set of train tracks, going to the wrong station. I bought right into your story. Paul straightened me up. You're right, there's 119 on the fire trucks. Then we have firefighters that are in fire alarm, we have firefighters in fire prevention. So we have 125, the slots haven't changed.
So, this is gonna be my questions. So you only have 2 women
Yep.
on
two women
your
currently.
department.
Currently.
So what is it that we need to do as a city to have more women go into the fire department?
Well, women, well, they need to apply, take the test. We do have 1 on the list currently. She's working in fire alarm, so technically I have 3, but she's a dispatcher. She's trying to get on. She's having, I don't know why she hasn't gotten to the offer letter. Something to do with a medical, I don't know what. And if I knew, I wouldn't say it out loud anyways, but I have no idea why. It's not always an appealing job to women. We have had a few of the year, there have been many around in other cities. I would hope that we would get more. They have just as much right to give a shot at the job as they want. We have a number of names on the civil service list. There aren't a lot of women that are on the list. I don't know, we can look into trying to, it's a state civil service exam. We can try to get more people involved. Right now, we have a student from the school system as an intern who is female. And she's been with Captain Delaney and Pat Ruiz and the other fire prevention members for over a month now. And she's taken a liking. So I wouldn't be surprised if that young lady takes the test when she gets older. And you want me to stop talking?
Councilor Infante.
I actually want to comment, thank you, Chair. I actually want to comment on the intern. I had a constituent issue a few weeks back, and I was with Captain Delaney and Officer Abel Cano, and he mentioned the intern and spoke so highly of her.
Yeah, she's
He
been great.
actually I'm due to meet her, but I heard very great things about her, so I'm excited to hear that she's liking it, and hopefully she'll stay with us.
And I wouldn't be surprised if she takes the exam after. She's been, I'm sorry? She's been very busy. She came to a couple of fires. We got to see how the investigation goes. It's been, I think she's had a good time with them. She's spent a lot more time than I thought she was going to spend with us, and seems to be going well. But we can certainly reach out more. We go to every event that the schools ask for, career development days. We try to present, you know, a good thing. I don't know how do you make somebody take the test, but it is a tough job, and it's hard on your body. You see how slow I get up when I stand up now. So, I don't know.
So Chief, perhaps we can look into expanding the internship program or doing like a shadow day, or I'm sure you guys are.
What day?
Like a shadow day, like shadow,
Shadow?
some, like a fire, or something. We
I have
can
no
look-
problem. We've offered to the school to come in with us, and I'm working with the school now currently to improve our presence there, which is going well. I'm all for it. The only thing we have to keep in mind, we can't have too many at one time because it is a dangerous job, and we
Right.
don't take them anywhere dangerous. So she's been with the fire prevention guys, so they can, if there's a fire, they go, but they can keep an eye on her, make sure she doesn't get anywhere dangerous. But we could definitely take maybe, 2 or 3 at the most at a time. And we do tours, we'd give tours, show people around. We've taken them out, showing what things are like. And we go to all those events that we can, and are going to more. We're doing it's a younger one this weekend, car seat. But we try to do everything that involves with the public.
Thank you, Chair.
Councilor Rosario.
Thank you. Chief, I'm sorry that, you're so happy, and I'm gonna go back to the assistant fire chief.
Okay.
If it's the union, they provide you the same assistant, right? If the union decided, the union.
what?
If it's a union job, they provide you the same assistant.
It's not going to be a union job.
If that happened, will you become the hiring manager for that?
No.
If that would be the
You mean
case.
the appointing authority? No, I'm not the appointing authority for the firefighters either. We have a civil service exam and I interview them, but my interviews, as I've been told, really make no difference. Civil service gives the list and the mayor is the appointing authority for all.
Thank you, Chief.
Good to know. Chief, going back to the female conversation, how we can increase female.
Dennis,
Yeah.
how can we get some more?
How we can increase females. Probably that position of the assistant chief will be a good position for a female, right? Why not?
No.
It's the assistant to the chief.
Well, no, I know where you're going with that. You're going to get me in trouble, but no, Counselor. We want somebody who's been on the job a number of years, but that doesn't mean we couldn't find somebody, out from somewhere else that has been on a number of years. I firmly believe that the job would require a number of years of experience, not only in the profession, but in a supervisory role.
Another thing that I want to bring up is that the city of Lawrence, as far as I know, I kind of did my research a little bit on the fire department, and I have 2 more questions. The fire department and the city of Lawrence is not, doesn't have the requirements of the age requirements. Some departments you have to be 34 or younger, and the city of Lawrence do not have that. in
My
place.
understanding is it was changed not with you guys, but in a council vote to let people older than the 32. Paul, are you aware of that age thing changing and when it changes? Did it stay permanent or was it a one-time thing?
I think it's back to the way it was.
Back to the way it was? So we're not really sure how it works. He thinks it might have gone back to the way it was. I know at times in some local communities, people have challenged it and had to have a home rule petition so that they could get hired. And that was before I was here. I was still under the impression it was a 32 when I came as somebody else.
Can you find out for me, please? I'm very interested.
Sure. I would caution you to be pushing for my own personal thing, for pushing for people that are older than, too old to get on the job. For one, it takes 20 years to get a 50% retirement. We have a mandatory retirement age of 65. So if people get hired at 45, they're going to work till they're 65 to get a job. And this is a young person's job when you're on the line.
I think 32 is still 34, 35, 36, still good.
Okay, I'm just trying to explain my point, but I'll find out I'll have to ask the city attorney, because I don't know who else that would have the answer. Any left?
Chief, the other question that I want to ask,
Sir?
a couple of times while I'm on this committee, there was one time that you guys came up to us asking for a disposition, a allowance from free cash to use it for overtime.
You're gonna get me again this year, too.
Oh, okay.
It's on the, it's
So
on for
let's
the
start a
next.
conversation about
It's
that.
already, the letter's already been submitted to the next council meeting, which is what, 6th, and then it'll go to this committee, right?
Yes.
So
So
it's already been submitted. for
this
300
budget include some overtime?
No, no more than I had last year. It's not
No more
enough.
than what you have last year,
Correct.
but include some overtime, including last year. And then it was
This budget is the same budget for overtime that I had last year. Doesn't
but
include
we have
anything
some
extra.
overtime, yes. like
Doesn't
300
include
something,
anything
right?
extra.
Nothing extra, but
Right.
we have some level funded amount of money that is
Correct.
the same as last year.
Correct.
So in this year, you also looking for, coming from the council for free cash transfer,
For more,
for more.
yes.
And that's totaling about what amount?
So we're gonna ask for 350,000. We were way worse than that, but we worked with moving our little budgets around, worked with the mayor and his administration and Mr. Iannello. He had an account that, because this year we had 3 firefighters. I'm sorry? We had 3 firefighters that retired. We had to take their buyouts from our overtime, so that made the number go up. And we worked with the administration and Mr. Iannello. He took some money out of a different account to pay for the retirement, so we went back and forth. But in the long run, it wasn't enough money. I said it wouldn't be enough money last year, and we're gonna come back for 350,000. Well, we're gonna start the process next week.
The total amount will be 1.3 million, right?
I'm asking for 350,000.
No, once you ask for the 350,000, the total amount will be 950 in the budget.
That would be
plus,
1.3.
Over $1 million, yeah, so $1.3 million in overtime,
I had 950, I'm asking for 350, so you're right, it'll be 1.3.
1.3. Can you go, yes, can you give us an overview as of how that money is being spent on the
truck.
overtime?
To keep the trucks in service. Everybody has vacation, personal time, family sick time, military time, ILD, jury duty. We have 4 people assigned positions to every apparatus except the squad. The squad only has 3. Somebody can be out of those 4 and we'll run with 3. So one truck could have 2, and there could be still 4 on this truck. We'll move a guy from here over to here so they both have 3, stay in service before we hire overtime. Once we get below, enough guys are off or sick or jury duty or court or military, whatever it is, then we have to hire. We only hire enough to keep the truck in service, 3 minimum. 3 people on a truck. Say that again? 3 what?
3 people, 24-hour shift.
Well, we break it up into 10s and 14s.
Okay, can you
So
go over?
it could, somebody might only be off for the day and come in at night, and we hire for days and nights. So, but we work 24 hours a day, so a shift is typically 24 hours. So if I was on shift and I took tomorrow off 24 hours, and that was only 2 people left on the truck, they'd have to hire somebody for the day and somebody for the night. Yes, so it would be 24. If I only took the day off, I was coming at night, then I only have to hire for the day. But we only hire to keep the trucks in service so that every neighborhood has their, and it's safer for us too.
So the overtime will be 12 hours per shift?
Well, it's 10s and 14s.
10 from 14, so, okay.
10-hour days, 14-hour nights.
Okay.
Union time off, they might have a union meeting, they'd be working, they take 4 hours off of that, so we end up hiring for 4 hours. So, but it's just to keep the truck in service.
The minimum amount is 3 people that you need, and then
Correct.
if somebody is not there, okay. It's always a little different with the firefighter department because of the chief are different. Councilors, any question in regard to this?
Yes.
Councilor De Rosario.
Thank you, Chair. Last year, I remember I asked you the same question. Right? You propose your budget. The administration, the CAFO knows that it's not going to be enough because you're going to come back for $350,000 at this time, and last year I remember that you came back. What is the answer that they give you when you put the numbers? Why they don't provide you with the amount that you asked for? That way you don't have to come back and ask for more.
I asked the same question many times. And it started when I first started here. And the process has been the same. The first administration that I worked with said, we're just going to give you just enough that we think probably isn't going to be enough, but we're going to give it to you, and we're going to watch it, and we're going to keep an eye on things. We're going to have meetings. In the first administration I worked for, we had meetings every other week, and we went over the overtime, and they raised questions, and we explained the same things that I just explained to you folks. And then sometimes we'd move some for an account from here to there, and we also were able to budget differently then. We didn't have a big lost time factor, which is the idea that if somebody retires, it's going to take me a long time to fill the slot, so that's lost time, so they take that money away. That wasn't as big as it is now. We were also able to budget for retirements and have that ready to go, and if they didn't retire, we used that in our overtime. Then we also had a few other things go our way, disaster-wise in the city, which was not so good, but Columbia Gas explosion, they ended up paying for a lot of our overtime. But when I said something and I said, well, why are we doing that? They said, well, we're going to watch it, and if it's not enough, you go to the city council and you'll have to ask them for money. And the answer I got from the administrator at the time was, and if they don't give you enough money, they put the fire truck out of service, not me. So, I mean, that's the answer I got. So, I don't like that, but that's the answer I got. Now, we try hard not to spend all the money. We try to make it stretch, we try to make it work, we keep an eye on it. You know, I've called people in for being out too many times, you know, too often for sick. Some people seem to be sick quite often, other people not at all, ever. But I think we do, even though we're using all the money and we're coming back for more, I think, compared to communities around us, we're doing pretty doggone good. The city of Haverhill runs one less truck than we do. His overtime budget's $2 million. North Andover, they're a lot smaller than we are. Same overtime budget I have. I think we do pretty good with it. Other people have different opinions, but I think we do all right. I took away any frivolous overtime. When we go mutual aid, we send a pump, other people send a pump to us or a ladder truck, they'll hire overtime to cover it. I don't hire overtime to backfill until we send 2 trucks. So, because we have to protect our own community as well. So if we send a pump and a ladder, then we'll hire overtime. It used to be we send any trucks. I cut back a lot of that. I don't double up on the trucks or build up for snowstorms. I might hire the plow guy because the plow is a different story, but I tell guys, come to work. Snowing, come to work. Don't go plowing for your side job, come to work. But I think we do a good job monitoring the overtime, and we get by with as little as we do. But that's...
So the follow-up question will be for Anelo. Anelo, if the formula is not working and they have to keep coming back for money, I've been here almost 2 years and I've seen them coming back for money, why don't we go with the formula that the chief actually put in and prevent them to come back for
Well,
more
they
money?
haven't come back every year. So last year...
I've seen it twice.
Yeah, I mean, they come back every once in a while, and if we were to give them $500,000 more in overtime, I would imagine we would probably spend $500,000 in overtime. So we try and, all departments ask us for more money than they get. I mean, if we gave everybody what they wanted, our taxes would be unaffordable here in the city of Lawrence. So those are decisions we make. We try and, we have, I think in all those divisions, it's well over $1 million in overtime. There's a lot of overtime. We try and make it work. We do subtract a lost time factor of $300,000 to kind of reflect the time it takes to fill positions when people retire, so we do everything we can. But, you know, and if it turns out we have to come back, we're willing to come back at the end of the year, but I hate to give money up front at the beginning of the year, because you know what happens, that gets spent, and then they're still asking for more at the end of the year. So there is a strategy here, we try and be very careful with everyone's budget. Nobody gets what they ask for 100%, because everybody asks for quite a bit. It's just the way it is. It's again, if we did not have Proposition 2.5, you know, that's what municipalities did before Prop 2.5. They would just increase, give all the departments what they needed, because there was really no requirement to cut the budget. Now we do have a requirement to cut the budget. And at least with this mayor, he didn't want to go up another 2.5% of an increase this year, as we discussed last night. So, you know, we're trying to keep the budget as tight as possible. And the way we look at it is if we have to come back at the end of next year for a few more dollars in overtime, well, maybe it's worth coming back at the end of next year as opposed to giving it up front and then maybe still needing it at the end of the year.
So agreeing to some office here and giving the money that they ask and denying the firefighters, is that fair? I mean, there's some offices.
We haven't denied, firefighters never get denied anything. We haven't.
Well, I mean, cutting the budget or limiting them at the budget that they are struggling to come back. But there's some office here that, the past year that I've been here, they increment their budget without no question asked. And is that okay? I mean,
I don't know, we have there's quite a bit in this budget. I mean, again, we're in collective bargaining, so it hasn't been increased for the collective bargaining, but that's in a different line item, so we'll be coming back to fund whatever collective bargaining contract we agree to. We'll be coming back to the council to fund that. That'll be added to the fire department's budget. But, you know, we have this conversation every year with overtime. We do fund a lot of overtime. And, you know, it's hard to manage it, as the chief just illustrated, because when people are out to keep the trucks going, you've got to have at least 3 people on a truck.
Thank you.
Mr. Ayanero.
Thank you, Mark.
Councilor Levy? Mr. Anello?
Mr. Ayanero,
Please.
There is a formula to decide what is the amount that we're gonna, so if I require 100 hours overtime and you provide me like it's just only 25, it's a formula that's being used for that?
Well, I think what the chief mentioned is if there's 4 people assigned to a truck, and if 4 people show up, great. If only 2 people show up, they need at least 1 more they have to hire back on overtime to keep that truck in service. Or they got to transfer a firefighter from another station to keep that station open. So that's what they kind of do. And when, you know, again, firefighters per their contract have 6 weeks vacation, you know, they've got umpteen, 15 sick days and personal time, you know, there's a lot of time that they have. And as the chief indicated, there's they call out sick, whatever it might be, and you've got to fill that position with overtime.
My question is if there is a formula to use, like to reduce, if I request 100 hours overtime and for the budget, okay, like for the whole year, I say, okay, I'm thinking that maybe I'm going to be using 100 hours. But I just said, no, we have to reduce it, and let's see what happened during the year. Let's reduce it for now for the budget purpose. So we reduce it like 50 hours.
Yeah, we don't have a formula for that in this particular case when we don't know how many people are going to, how many people are going to be needed each day. So it's hard to have a formula for overtime. It's just we just go by historical, what did we spend last year, and we try and, we know we're going to spend roughly $1 million next year. It could be a little higher depending when the firefighter salaries increase, the overtime increases as well. So there's a little bit of that impact, but we can't we can't control the overtime because if as opposed to the police department, for example, they could perhaps use their overtime for using an extra patrol, say on Broadway or something like that, and pay overtime to do that. Firefighters are a little different. We're just trying to keep the truck open or keep the truck in service.
Okay, thank you so much.
Councilor Infante.
Thank you. I have a more of a comment than a question, but it's kind of going back, and this is more for the, for the CAFO, but going back, it's like the same example that I used yesterday for the IT. Why are we being reactive instead of proactive? It's not, we know that they've been coming to the council for years to ask for additional funding. We know it's going to happen. I understand that there's no accurate way to estimate the amount of money we're going to use, but there is a paper trail of what's been done in previous years that we can use to at least get a nice estimate to implement within the budget. I don't think, if we know it's happening, it just doesn't make any sense to have them continue coming back, asking for more money when we know it's going to happen. Like I said, there's years and years and years of paper trail, and I know we mentioned the current administration, but from what I'm hearing, they have nothing to do with this. This has been happening for years, so I don't understand why we have not been proactive. And I'm asking you that because you've been in this position for a few years now, and
Yeah, I disagree. I think we are very proactive. That's why we don't give them what they ask for. We're trying to manage the city's budget. We do the best we can to fund what they need, but an extra, if I give them another $500,000 in overtime, I've got to cut somebody else $500,000. So it's a decision. The mayor has a really difficult job. All right, here's $500 for you. Well, I got to take $500 from over here to get the thing to balance. So one of the things the mayor and even the previous mayor, we're going to fund it as best we can to make the budget work. And if at the end of the year we can't get through, we're willing to take it out of free cash to supplement their budget and get it to them. We're not asking, we haven't shut down any fire stations or any trucks or anything like that. We're trying to make it work. But it is one thing I would caution the city to do would be to fund all departments exactly what they ask for, because I think you'll find that we're going to have a lot fewer employees, or certain things are not going to happen. But overtime in particular, $1 million in overtime for 125 people, that's a lot of overtime. And I know it's not the chief's fault when we go over that $1 million, but it's something that the fire department does watch on a weekly basis, and as the chief mentioned, we try not to call in overtime if we have an extra person on another truck. If I give him all the overtime he needs, well, why would he do that? He'd be able to just charge overtime. Somebody's out. So it has spawned a creativeness on the part of the fire department to do the best they can to manage that overtime.
so I'm gonna, and I 100% agree with you about we can't give every department what the exact amount that they're asking for. But again, to repeat myself, we have a track record specifically for this department of the needs, particularly to overtime. Secondly, from what I'm hearing in the discussions, a few years back, however long it was, you don't have to say it, but the chief was told, well, it won't be me shutting down a fire truck, it'll be like the city council's fault. To me now, it's like we're playing politics than trying to figure out how to keep this department moving forward and decrease the amount of time they have to come to the city council to ask for additional funding, but it is what it is.
Thank you. But if I would add something positive to what Mark said, that I think I myself and my Paul, administrator staff, we have opened two, Mark said, we haven't closed the fire truck? No, we haven't. We've opened 2 stations since I've been here without changing the staffing rule. So we have had 2 closed stations that we were able to remodel, fix up, get in good shape, improve coverage in those 2 neighborhoods, as well as now with this last grant that we've received that you guys also voted money for the Quint, it's going to be water in every fire station. So we are improving the coverage to you every year, even though we're the same staff, and yes, we cost some money in overtime, but we've made some really good improvements. Yeah, I had to throw that good thing in there, sorry.
Councilors, any questions in regard to the fire department?
Yes, Chief,
Councilor Levy.
Yes,
just only by curiosity, what is the difference between deputy fire chief and assistant fire chief?
It's another rank They, typically in the fire service, we firefighter, lieutenant, captain, deputy, assistant chief, chief. And in other bigger places, they have a number of different levels of chief officers. They might have district chiefs, battalion chief, district chief, deputy chief, they might call them different, but it's just another rank. So essentially, that person could be, what they're hoping in this administration for this position is to be my essentially assistant, my number two, to back me up when I'm not there. I have a bunch of things in my head that person could do, but essentially, it's just another rank, ma'am. Rank, R-A-N-K, just another rank. 4 bugles instead of 3. And I wear 5, if that helps you with ranks.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Councilors, any questions in regard to this, the fire department? I hear none. Thank you, Chief. Thank you so much.
You all, thank you very much. Thanks, Mike, for your help.
Councilors, we have no other department for tonight. So at this point, I will entertain a motion to
So
recess.
moved. Second.
There is a motion to recess properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 The ayes have it. Thank you so much.